This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, July 3rd, 2023. Case file number 1176, written by Barbara. The 3 warnings that saved my life. One day, I was riding in a cab in my neighborhood, and I said to the cab driver, "Look, there's a photo of a girl and flowers on that lamppost. It must be a memorial to someone who died in an accident right there." To my surprise, he said, "I know that girl's family. She was 16 and she died crossing that street because the driver sped up instead of stopping." The next day, I was at a local bank and I happened to mention the accident to a teller I knew. Again, I was surprised when she also said, "I know that girl's family. They told me a confused elderly driver stepped on the gas instead of the brake." The day after that, I bought some ice cream from an ice cream truck. I noticed that the man in the truck was wearing a rubber bracelet, which people wear to support a cause or as a tribute. I asked, "Why are you wearing that bracelet?" And he said, "In honor of my daughter. Last week she died in a car accident." Yes, you guessed it, he was that girl's father. After this coincidental chain of events, I wondered if possibly fate was trying to tell me something. I concluded that the message was that I should be extra careful the next time I was about to cross a street. That time came early the next morning, when I set out to go to a yard sale. When the light turned green, although there were no cars in sight and no other people around but me, I didn't walk forward. A car came zooming through the crosswalk and continued on without stopping. If I had been crossing at that moment, I would have been killed. Thanks to the 3 warnings, combining into a special message from fate, I wasn't. Case file number 1177, written by Pant Fiction, The Ceiling Beast, Lawrence. A few years back, I and a friend of mine, we called him Tackle Box, went over to another friend's house, J-Bot. The living room is on the 2nd floor and the ceiling is made of a very weak particle board-like substance, flaky and painted white. On one of these ceiling tiles, there was a scrape that ended with a large hole. It sat just over where J-Bot had placed his TV. So the 3 of us are hanging out, watching a really bad B-rate film about giant insects on the Sci-Fi Channel. Tacklebox glances up and says, "Yo, is that a spider in that hole?" J-Bot and I look at him and start laughing. His obvious attempt at scaring us because we were a little high and watching the film we were watching was a complete failure. "No, guys, I'm serious," he says, but there's some gravity behind his voice and expression. J-Bot and I, sitting on the floor, stare deep into the hole, looking for something resembling a spider. The hole was probably large enough to put 2 fists through, and I was staring at what may have been loosely hanging fabric draped lightly around the inside of it. Then suddenly, what manifested due to its movement was something resembling fingers, crooked, bent, and jointed, that scurried backward into the hole. Panicking, we found ourselves on the other side of the living room, frantic for an explanation. What we saw was not a spider, and even if it was larger than even a tarantula. We weren't sure what to do, so we slowly approached the hole, on foot, and I took cover behind the loveseat, peeking up over the back support. That's when I saw the craziest thing. It stuck something out through the hole. It was a light brown and gray, with lighter gray spots, but it resembled a periscope, but rounded and stubbier, spinning around, scanning the area. My imagination struggled with what I was seeing. My brain just couldn't come up with any explanations. I actually began to accept the fact that it was extraterrestrial, because I had nothing else. Then we grabbed a piece of cardboard and some courage, rushed to the hole, placed the cardboard over, taped it down, and then retaped it for good measure. Then we named the ceiling beast Lawrence. That cardboard stayed up there for years, with warnings all over it. If anyone so much as pretended to take it down, anyone present for the initial incident would dart from the room and down the stairs, no explanation. Creepy file number 98, written by Anonymous, The Protective Beam of Light. I was driving home at around midnight one night on the empty streets of my hometown when I saw a car turn onto the street that I was on. It was about 50 yards behind me or so, on the 2-lane road I was on, nearly 2 miles from my house. It hit a bump as it was turning, and its lights hit the sweet spot in my mirror where they lined up with my eyes, flashing and blinding me for an instant. As soon as this happened, I became overwhelmed by a visceral sense of dread. I knew this car was bad news. There was no question about it. Sure enough, they pulled up right beside me, and everyone in the car looked at me. I remember hoping it was a bunch of drunk teens or something. What I saw was 3 or 4 young men in wife beaters with blank expressions. I turned away and continued to drive normally, deciding that I wouldn't look at them again. They kept pace with me and drove erratically, probably trying to get my attention. When I turned onto my street, they screeched tires, making a turn from the outside lane to follow me. I didn't know what to do, so I turned down my driveway suddenly. They missed the turn and sped past. I turned off the lights in my car and drove up so I couldn't be seen from the road. They drove around the block a time or two before I booked it inside. I still don't know how I intuited that they were dangerous, but it sure as hell happened. Case file number 1178, written by Frogman6. From the depths of the earth, I survived. I was working about 4,000 feet below the surface in an underground gold mine in Grootvlei, South Africa. My crew had just finished putting in 10-foot-long roof bolts. We started drilling the next round. I told the drillers that they were not drilling the hole pattern properly and that we would most likely have bootlegs after we blasted. They ignored me. We blasted, and when we came back, sure enough, the round hadn't broken properly. Embarrassed, the crew started up the slusher to clean up the round. They did this while I was still inspecting the face. The slusher uses cables. These cables started flapping all about me. I jumped out of the way, screaming for them to shut off the slusher. The second I jumped out of the way, the entire hanging wall that we had roof bolted came crashing down where I'd been standing 1 second before. Hundreds of tons of rock lay strewn all around. I was scared crapless and started looking through the dust and darkness to see if any members of my crew were hurt or killed. Thank God everyone was okay. I remember going up to the surface, throwing up in the cage, and being in a state of shock. I should have died. Needless to say, I soon returned stateside and took up a nice office job in marketing. Creepy file number 99, written by Whispers666, unleashing the things that go bump in the night. I don't think I can express with words how terrifying it is for me. I am taking deep breaths and trying not to cry. It is all in my head, and I know that, and that makes it worse. This is entirely true, but it's all in my head. When I was a child, I would get the same scared of the dark as every other child did. My big sister, who I'm very close to, tried to help me with this. We shared a room as children. She'd tell me to think about happy thoughts, distract myself. But this one thing she said still sticks with me. The things in the dark only exist if you let them. But what happens if I let them? I was an imaginative child. I read more than I talked, and I loved fiction. What if I let the things in the dark exist? Like when someone says, "Don't think about elephants." Now that's all you can think about. The more I try not to think about them being there, the fact that I'm trying to block them out is as sure a way to prove that they're there. I let them exist, and they only exist for me. They don't hurt anyone. They watch, don't hurt me, or they haven't, or I haven't let them. They watch. They just watch, and that's the worst part. Why are they watching? What are they watching for? Why are they watching me? I'm in my room, and it's large and very spacious. I'm facing the wall. There is only one light on, and there's my computer. I feel like I can feel them, watching me, cold. They're watching me. They're watching me. But I've let them exist, and they exist in the dark. Do you ever get the sense someone is watching you? Have you ever felt your stomach drop in terror or fear? Do you ever get an encompassing chill all across your skin when something is just wrong? It's the windows at night. It's cracked open doors. Sometimes I can't look behind me because I'm scared. I went to the Mammoth Caves once, in Kentucky. The tour guide talked about how if the old miners' lights went out, they couldn't see anything. Then she turned out the lights. Have you ever experienced true darkness? No external lighting, nothing. Pitch black. That's what it feels like. Cold, dark, desolate. I once was in my kitchen. It was a large window, and it was dark outside. I stood there, back to the fridge for 20 minutes. I could feel them looking in from the window. I couldn't move. I couldn't look away from the window. What if I did? Would they come in if I didn't see them? They were just out there. Most of these things are supposed to have a feeling to them. Sinister, evil, but they're just there, watching. It fills me with dread, and I know they're only there because I let them be, and that's the worst. If I created them, why can't I control them? They're not there in the daytime. I'll forget about them for days, weeks at a time, but the moment I let them back in, they're there. It's all my fault. The things in the dark are only there because I let them be. Bonus file written by Arg, what a throwaway. How my dog saved us from a haunting. My childhood dog was super well behaved, and he knew he wasn't allowed upstairs at night, and he definitely wasn't allowed in our bedrooms. Well, one time, my grandmother was staying overnight with my sister and I while my parents were away on a trip. She was awakened in the middle of the night by a loud bang crash from downstairs. As she was starting to get up, my dog hightailed it up the stairs and basically threw his weight onto the bedroom door to get it open. He entered, shaking uncontrollably. My grandmother goes downstairs and finds that a painting my family had hanging in the living room above our fireplace was face up on the ground where my dog usually likes to sleep. The painting itself was pretty creepy and looked like it was also huge and awkward and had an ornate, heavy frame. The glass from the frame was shattered all over the floor. She figured that either the string hanging the painting had broken or the nail had come loose, but both were still intact. It was as if someone had picked up the painting and, in a large rage, slammed it onto the ground. This was in a house that was reportedly haunted by an old lady and her dog. In her old age, she had mostly stuck to the attic, where I also used to hear footsteps when no one was up there. Other family members reported seeing her, and almost everyone saw the dog, including myself. Case file number 1179, written by The Beef Chief. I witnessed a star extinguished from existence. It was late at night. I can't remember the date, but it was about 2 years ago. I had just finished a shift working at a bar I used to work at during university. I was looking up into the night sky, pondering human existence, yada yada. Then, whilst looking at a cluster of stars, one just blinked out. It was there, not extremely bright, but bright enough. Then it was gone. I was there for about 15 minutes, seeing if it came back, but it didn't. To this day, I can't explain what happened. Did I witness the death of a star? I just don't know. It's incredible to think of the possibilities and the vast improbability of what I could have seen. I can't explain it. Bonus file written by, it's Matt, The Shadow of Nightmares. When I moved in with my now ex-girlfriend, she told me she would frequently jolt awake and see a shadowy figure standing in a room or at the foot of her bed or even sitting on the bed. She said that no matter where she was living, she had seen it. I never thought much of it. I told her about sleep paralysis and told her about some things to ease it. One night, around 3 a.m., I got shook awake by a hysterical girlfriend just screaming, and I can't understand her. I look on her side of the bed and see this tall, shadowy figure. I asked who it was. I wanted to sound tough, but I'm pretty sure my voice cracked. I didn't wait for an answer. I lunged at this thing, and my girlfriend started screaming. I saw this shadowy thing on the floor and just started stomping the hell out of it while also screaming and finally telling her to turn on the lights. The thing I was stomping on was my blanket. She was screaming at first because she said she woke up with the shadowy figure standing over me and, in her words, messing with me. After I tried tackling it, she was screaming because I was yelling. I told her to sit on the bed and looked around the apartment. Didn't find anything. Freaked me the hell out. Cops appeared outdoors 10 minutes later to make sure things were okay. Probably freaked a neighbor out. After that, whenever I was at my apartment, I would feel like something was watching me. After me and the girlfriend broke up and I moved out, I never felt like that again. I'm just happy that when faced with a fight or flight moment, I decided to tackle that thing, whatever it was. which was probably nothing. Bonus file: the sinister secret of our recurring nightmares. The house I used to live in, between the age of 4 and 10, had a cellar of the dank, dark kind. This cellar was accessed through a door in the kitchen. Between the kitchen and living room were the staircase leading upstairs. Every single night I had the same recurring dream that I'd fall down the staircase, feeling the fall. I'd be unable to get back up, like climbing 2 steps and falling back down 1, and that something very bad was coming up from the cellar to get me. Having this nightmare every single night was no fun at all, but it stopped when we moved houses. It was only a few years back. I'm almost 40 now. I was out having a few beers with my sister. We got talking and she mentioned having a recurring nightmare when she was a child. Yep, you guessed it. We ended up finishing each other's sentences as we both had the exact same recurring nightmare in that property. My mother used to work part-time at a teacher's college, and I did the odd evening bartending at the small bar they had on site. It was rumored to be haunted, and I've heard of all sorts of strange tales that the staff there have spoken about. One particular evening, we headed down the long dead-end hallway. The bar was on the left at the bottom, and the site manager's office on the right at the bottom. The door to the bar was locked, so we turned 180 to get the key out of the manager's office. Only thing is, our key for the manager's office wouldn't turn. We tried for a few minutes trying the door, nothing. It was like we had the wrong key, although we only had the one key, and it had always worked before. Anyway, we decided to go find the security guy who would have a spare. We walked maybe 10 feet up the corridor when my mother realized that the manager didn't start for another half hour, so we just have to keep trying. We turned around, walked back, and the door was now half open. Now this corridor is a complete dead end at the side. The room was empty, no one came past us, and when we opened the bar, also empty. This final story also involves the same location as the second story, the teacher's college. My father used to drop me off and collect me when I do bar work there, as I hadn't passed my test at the time. The drive up to the college was through a few country lanes, and then down a long driveway of around a quarter of a mile, surrounded by lawns and odd bush. When my father collected me this particular evening, it was pitch black out. We were driving out, down the long drive, when bright green smoke rushed in. It went from one side of the road, across in front of our headlights, and over to the other side of the grounds, like a snake. It was swirling like it was in a long glass cylinder and didn't disperse. I completely crapped myself, and it was a few seconds before I asked my father if he saw it too. He claims now that it was someone burning leaves, but at the time he was as shook up as I. Case file number 1180, written by A.T. Caver, The Lake of Alchemy. I was hiking around a local lake last year. Now, this particular lake is known for its coyote population, and it's 100% legal to hunt them on public land. I had taken my rifle out to do some hunting, but decided to give it up after an hour and just take some nature-type photos. I took my rifle back to the car and ventured out with just my camera and my marine surplus K-bar strapped to my belt. I had just taken some sweet pics of a red-tailed hawk when I began to hear the bushes rustling. I turned around to watch a couple of mangy coyotes hop out of the bushes. Me, being a quick thinker, snapped a couple pics of the coyote, then dropped my camera. I held eye contact with them as I drew my K-bar in a defensive backhand grip. I knew I was probably going to die, but I wanted to show defiance in the face of death. I started whispering something about taking them with me when a rock came flying out of the stream behind me and caught one coyote right on the nose. I didn't turn around until they bolted, but I definitely heard no sounds of retreating from behind me. When the coyotes had gone, I turned around. The water was being displaced in a perfect circle in the middle of the stream. I could feel a slight change in the air. I felt that I needed to say something. I simply stated, "Well played, thanks," accompanied by a nod. I sensed some new feeling in the air and felt that the being was nodding. Suddenly, I was coming on my back next to my car after dark. I checked my camera, which was lying next to me, and there were no pictures on it at all from that afternoon. Bonus file written by Bending Betty, The Secrets of the African Burial Site. I grew up in a haunted house. Crap only went down after my parents started digging to put in a pool. The builders unearthed an African burial site. Some other things that have happened since then. Kitchen. We'd go to bed with dishes in the sink every night. About once every 3 months, we'd wake up with the dishes in a drying rack all sparkly clean. My parents bought new cutlery twice while living there. On both occasions, we'd find all the cutlery lined up in rows on the kitchen floor. We were constantly woken by the cupboards opening and slamming shut. A few times, you'd walk into the kitchen and every single cupboard and drawer would be wide open. Passage. Every single night, you could hear 2 little girls playing outside our rooms at night. We'd hear giggles, running and skipping. The worst was the whispers, though. I don't know if they were whispering in another language, but no matter how hard you tried, you could never make out what they were saying. If anyone opened the doors, the sounds would stop instantly. Entertainment room. There was one ghost that lived in this room, and she was the first one to actually show herself to us. She was black and in her late teens. Everyone felt this intense fear when she showed herself. She was always sitting and her movements were never smooth, always jerking as if she was lagging. I had a feeling that she couldn't walk. There was so much anger and hate that came off of her. My bedroom. It was added when the pool was built. For some reason, it became the hotspot of activity. There was a man that would walk through my window, up next to my bed, and just stare at me. I would always hide under the covers. I would wake up just before he came through the window because the room would get insanely cold. I referred to him as Jesus because he looked just like the Jesus guy from Sunday school that we'd have to color in. We lived right next to the beach, so you could always hear the waves crashing. Some nights I would wake up with absolutely no sound, as if all the sound had been sucked up. It was terrifying, but would always get much worse. After about 30 seconds of the silence, a baby would start screaming. The rest of the house would slowly wake up to the crying baby, but I was the only one that ever experienced the silence before the crying started. The year before I moved out of my parents' house, I woke up when a man entered my room. I wasn't scared. He looked nothing like my father, but for some reason my brain told me it was okay. He's my dad. He won't hurt me. This guy bends over me, gets his face right up in front of mine, smiles, and then kisses me. He then says he loves me, and I have made him the proudest papa possible. My dad hasn't kissed me since I was 7, and neither me nor him have ever referred to him as papa. I had a friend and his girlfriend over. He had experienced some of the crap that had gone down in my room, and she was keen to see something because she thought it was cool. We were smoking and playing some Xbox. Suddenly, the power went out. We sat around the camera light from a phone, smoking and talking crap. My friend's girlfriend decides to say out loud, "If there really are spirits here, can't you turn the lights on?" Less than a second after she said that, my fish tank's light came on. It keeps getting brighter and brighter until the room is filled with a light so bright I had to close my eyes. There was a loud bang, and I opened my eyes to complete darkness. Friend's girlfriend got so scared she peed herself on my bed. Parents' room. Second ghost to show themselves. A young black girl in her best Sunday clothes would just stand in the corner smiling at you. She was immensely friendly, but it felt like she couldn't see you, like she was looking at something else. Her eyes and smile would be in your direction, just never felt like it was meant for you. Case file number 1181, written by E. Bunny. Surviving an explosive incident against all logic. Keeping with the parents' intuition, back in high school, I twisted my ankle pretty badly, severing ligaments and all, in my gym class. My high school was about 1 kilometer, 1.6 miles, away from my house, and there was a stair bridge I had to cross to get home. Since I couldn't even put my foot on the ground and wasn't used to the crutches yet, my mom would drop me off at school and give me a ride home. It was November, and I'd finished class almost at 7 p.m., so it was dark and very cold. I'd been waiting for my mom to pick me up for nearly 20 minutes, which was very unusual. I was hurting, cold, and hungry. Honestly, getting a bit angry because I had tried phoning home and her cell phone and no one was picking up. When I finally decided I would have to try and make it home by foot, she appeared. I waddled to the car and asked her where she had been. She told me she was home. I got angry and raised my voice a little, but she just apologized and said that she just couldn't bring herself to get out of the house. She knew I was out in the cold waiting for her, but she just couldn't leave because she had a bad feeling about it, and her instinct was telling her to wait a bit longer to go pick me up. I asked her how bad it was, but she couldn't explain it. Like I said, my ankle was hurting and by now I was beyond hungry, so I just told her to forget about it and let's go home. Midway home, we were caught in traffic, and this bus on the other lane passed by, and at the same time I heard a boom and felt a little shake. I say to my mom that I think the bus blew a tire. She says that wasn't a tire blowing up. The traffic eases up and we start moving. A little closer to home, we hear sirens. Fire trucks and ambulance sirens. We get to the back of our neighborhood and there's shattered glass everywhere in the road and sidewalks. We parked behind our building complex and saw that one of the cafe owners, we have shops below the apartments, was bleeding from his head. Now we're getting really concerned and go to the front of the complex. I kid you not when I tell you it looked like a war zone. Dust-covered cars and trees, and there was so much debris on the ground that you could not see the floor. I am 1.71 meters tall, almost 5'7", and I had debris up to my knees. Underneath the building in front of mine, all the cars had been crushed by what looked like massive pieces of cement and marble. I looked up and then I saw it. The last 3 floors of the building were missing. A couple of pillars held the last floors, but all the walls were completely gone. It was obvious then there was an explosion. Firemen and EMTs everywhere taking people to an improvised triage tent. We ran home. The door at the entrance of our building, an iron door, had completely come off its hinges. We got up the stairs and our door was completely fine. We get in and nothing looks out of the place until we open the bedroom doors. There was a massive hole in all 3 bedrooms where the windows were supposed to be. The metal window cases and the blown up shutters were inside the bedroom on top of the furniture and glass was everywhere. In my bedroom, even the computer keys were missing. Right where I would have been seated at the computer, there was a huge cement rock. Had I been home, I would have been hit by the explosion waves, glass and debris. And had we not been stuck in traffic, our car could have been one of the crushed ones, with us inside. I never gave much thought to my mom's feelings, but I'm glad she got this one. Even weirder, no one was where they were supposed to be that night. Everyone got home late, and those that were home got away with just cuts and scrapes. We were all beyond lucky that night. Case file number 1182, written by Captain Stupendous, the Starcraft expansion that didn't exist. Back in 1998, my girlfriend and I were at Comp USA browsing the PC games. We found an expansion pack for Starcraft, and I remember being surprised that it was released so soon. We figured that there was no rush to buy it right then. By the next week, it was completely gone. This is where things get weird. The official expansion pack, Brood War, had not yet released. Only one unofficial expansion pack, Insurrection, was ever released. That was not the game my girlfriend and I saw at the store. The unofficial expansion pack did not feature Sarah Kerrigan, while Brood War and the box art and tech summary of this mystery game did. This was at the time before it was common knowledge that Kerrigan would be the focus of the expansion. The mystery box was white, and not the green-gray mix that was on the box of the official StarCraft expansion. Finally, this game was clearly on sale with multiple copies available, and was certainly not a bunch of dummy coming soon boxes. I ended up emailing Blizzard Entertainment to clear up the confusion. They responded that no official expansion had yet been released, nor did they send out any dummy boxes to promote the release of Brood War. Case file number 1183, written by Tatsui 1. We died, but our hearts restarted in unison. I forgot about this when I posted my first really weird memory, but it was something my mom told me when I asked about my birth and dad. I was born 3 months premature, but 3 months after my dad died, an odd coincidence. During the birth, complications arose and mine and my mom's hearts both stopped. The doctors worked for about 10 minutes before giving up. But as soon as they called it quits, both of our hearts started beating in unison before becoming independent. The doctors finished the birth with a C-section, and when they had to explain this to my mom, their best explanation was, somehow your hearts jump-started each other. As a bit of background, My mom told me she wouldn't live past 18, had me at 31, is now 51. Because she was allergic to most fruits and vegetables, and also had a severe iron deficiency. When my middle brother was born, he was hospitalized on and off for 6 months due to a weak immune system. Alive but a dumbass, so there's that. On top of stabbing, shootings, riots, fires, and gas leaks, me and my family should have died many times over, yet somehow we survive each oddity. Case notes of file 1176, The Three Warnings. So can anyone honestly chalk this up to destiny? I know tons of people in my personal life that would try to do that, and while technically possible, it's like in a casino. When you start rolling hits 5 times in a row, the pit manager starts to pay attention, and so we should be too. If reality starts throwing dices, like, those might be loaded. So all there is to say here is that, universe, we are paying attention. Something's amiss. Case note to file 1177, The Ceiling Beast Lawrence. This gives me both vibes of Stranger Things and The Mist combined. Hell, those two lores could be combined pretty easily. Maybe they are in the same universe, actually. That'd be kinda cool. Like 40K and Event Horizon being the prequel, given that they head into the warp zone, sort of, but they have no shielding, so it takes them over and consumes them with just pure evil. It's a very interesting theory. One of the more plausible fan theories, if you ask me. You're braver than I would have been. I think in this situation, most people just set a fire and start a new life in a new country. Even if you're kids, you have to just make do with what you can. Even on another planet, if Elon Musk has space on his Mars trip. Case notes for the creepy file number 98, The Protective Beam of Light. So others suggested this, but I want to reiterate. If you're being followed by strange people, or a car you perceive as hostile, the best course of advice is finding the nearest police station or busy place of business, like a gas station if it's at night, well lit. If you can't do that, trying to shake them and hide is the next best thing, without driving recklessly, of course. Now I know people don't always think rationally in these kinds of chaotic and fearful situations, adrenaline spikes and all that, so I don't blame you at all. But leading people back to your home is suboptimal for sure, so be careful about that. As for the headlights, yeah. It's down to the manner in which they turned, and the lights were flashing. Your subconscious processed enough information from that limited input to determine with high accuracy in this case that danger was afoot. Isn't it amazing how powerful our minds are? Like outside of any sort of supernatural or deeper layer processing of future information, just the raw base level is so powerful. We are the ultimate AI. And we're trying to create it, which is interesting, and it's useful for specific cases, but I love our brains. Our brains are very cool. And now time for the quote of the day. You can't help someone up a hill without getting closer to the top yourself. H. Norman Schwarzkopf. Definitely butchered the last name there. Helping others doesn't mean that you diminish yourself. It doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice blood and become weaker. Not at all. I think by helping other people, we become stronger. And it's actually a very interesting point to make. You see a lot of creators on social media, YouTube and such, that help other people and record it, and people don't like that. I guess they think that taking credit for benevolence is bad, or that maybe because they make a profit from it and they can keep doing it, then it's somehow bad. I disagree. I think it's a win-win-win-win in every category. Like Mr. Beast. He helps so many people to such a great extent. And he's only able to do that because he records it and makes it entertaining, so tons of people watch it, and then he gets advertising money, sponsorships, and can keep doing it, helping the world. I don't understand how anyone has a problem with that. I think it's awesome. He's helping the world push it to the top. And yeah, he elevates himself too. It's fantastic. Win-win, win-win, win-win-win. Keep on winning forever. Good. Case notes for file 1178. From the depths of the earth, I survived. Yes, exactly. Before I read that last line, I was thinking, this man better have quit on the spot. Nope. You know those videos of people willingly choosing to spelunk into caves, cramming themselves into tight, claustrophobic rocks where you can't even move? I wouldn't do that for $1 trillion. No idea how anyone does it, especially just for free, just for fun. Is that fun? I'd rather go skydiving. At least you have free space everywhere. Yeah, you may hit the ground too fast, but at least you're free, but that willingly putting yourself into a confined space like that is just terrifying. One unstable earthquake, like a tiny tremor, and you're just, the rocks compress like half an inch and you're just dead. There's cases of people being trapped like upside down, and because of the awkward angles to get down there, they couldn't even be saved. They just wither away for days. It's horrible. Can't imagine a worse way to die. There's almost no possible way to go out worse. So yeah, not for me. Working in a mine isn't quite as terrifying, but it's still so unstable and impressive that many people do this. And this collapse, one wrong domino falling and you wouldn't have moved. Was it pure instinct or more? I think it's probably more. Maybe a guardian angel type event where you were just fed enough information to hop out of the way in time. That's very likely. But either way, I'm just glad you're alive. Case notes of the creepy file number 99. Unleashing the things that go bump in the night. Pitch black. True fear, yes. Not quite as bad as claustrophobia, but still, well up there. Not only in the factor of the unknown, what could be out there, but the total inability to apply reason to the situation, because you have no sensory input. Besides sound, which can more easily be twisted due to echoes, especially in a cave. Now, as far as this constant presence being felt, is it purely in your head? I think applying that negative spin to it is, but there may be a rational explanation towards what you're sensing constantly. That is, these beings in the shadows back to the echoes. They're like imprints of other real human beings in the multiverse. So is it just your imagination? It may be more than that, especially as a child. Children are more open to that connection. It's theorized at least that parallel universes aren't distant. They're all right on top of us in terms of spatial dimensions, meters, feet, miles, etc. The other side isn't far away, but separated or blocked off. Like a wall to another room, it's right there, but if thick and soundproofed, you'd never see or hear anything on the other side, even though, again, it's right there. Unless you come across a door, that is. And I think some minds have the key. Thing is, maybe these shadow beings are not able to cross over completely, and they get trapped inside the wall. Terrible fate if that's the case. Case notes for the bonus file. How my dog saved us from a haunting. You know, that's something to think about. Say a dog owner dies, and then eventually that dog also dies. The fragmented souls left behind, they find each other, wouldn't they? They'd be drawn like a magnetic force, coupled together for an eternal pale existence on this mortal plane. And if there's anger involved, they would fester. Indeed, to the point of outbursts of rage. The thing is, I don't think most spirits are capable of true harm, or at least to say doing so is cosmically difficult. It's back to magnetism. It's like trying to force two identical poles together. You can do it with enough force and depending on the strength of the magnets, but it's not easy, and it's not meant to be that way. It's going against the grain. And now time for the quote of the day. If we can connect in some tiny way with a human that doesn't agree with us, then maybe we won't blow up the planet. Nancy White. A rather topical quote for the day's events. Being on the precipice of planetary annihilation all the time kind of weighs on your soul. I think it does for all of us. But I don't think we're there yet. It's harder now to have discourse with people because a lot of people assume the worst of the other person. They don't assume they want the same thing, a peaceful life where we all are happy and healthy. And if you come to a discussion where the person you're talking to is the enemy, they're monsters, well, you can't connect even in that tiny way. And if you can't connect at all, there's no common ground, well, yeah, you're just enemies. I think it was in World War I or World War II where it was Christmas time, and there were two combatants on each side, and they decided that for Christmas, at least the soldiers were just going to drop the act, because they don't even know why they're fighting each other, really. And they just played soccer in the field. They came together, and that's what we have to do. Case notes for file 1179. I witnessed a star extinguished from existence. I think Occam's razor would suggest you simply saw the last light of a dying star. Most think that all stars explode in a violent supernova at the end of their life, but others do just slowly fade out after becoming red giants. The light can become so dim that you can no longer detect it. The thing is though, that would take a long time, so the light would diminish over thousands of years, not suddenly. So another possibility, far more cool, is you witness the final glimmer of light before that star was entirely encapsulated by an alien species finishing up its Dyson swarm, which, if you don't know, is a construct whereby quadrillions of small reflective platforms surround an entire volume of a star and collect 100% of its energy output. You might have heard of a Dyson sphere. It's the same principle, but instead of an entire sphere, it's floating platforms that can adjust their position, and it's more efficient if you do it that way. And basically, it's a solar power on giga-level steroids. So an alien story a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, because the light we see in the night sky, it's been traveling to us for thousands, sometimes millions of years from different galaxies. The night sky is a grand archive of the universe's past. It's beautiful. Case notes for the bonus file, The Shadow of Nightmares. I agree with your self-assessment. It's impressive that you decided in fight or flight, there's also freeze, to fight to protect yourself and your then girlfriend. Commendable. These shadow beings are likely real humans, breaking through the thin membrane between parallel worlds, incapable of crossing over entirely, usually, and perhaps even trapped between both worlds. But I don't think they're harmful, necessarily. I mean, some of them could be. I mean, if it's a madman villain, that's crossing over, but most people are good, and I assume most people in other parallel worlds are also good. The eternal optimist I am. Case notes for the bonus file, The Sinister Secret of Our Recurring Nightmares. Okay, that green smoke, combined with a snake appearing, is very creepy indeed. So many mythos involve snakes as being evil, or indeed representing temptation itself. Some kind of spirit is tethered to you, or at least was at some point, trying to lure you out, maybe tempt you into things that you shouldn't be doing. So be cautious of that. Now time for the quote of the day. Home computers are being called upon to perform many new functions, including the consumption of homework formerly eaten by the dog. Doug Larson. Yes, children now, teenagers, have to evolve in their tactics, because the dog ate my homework is just not a sufficient excuse anymore. The SSD lost the data, was corrupted? That might go a bit further. Gotta evolve your tactics. Keep that in mind, children. Case notes for file 1180, The Lake of Alchemy. Whatever saved you was clearly a type of guardian of the lake. I don't think of a general guardian angel that's tethered to you specifically, but something that inhabits this lake and intends to keep it as a sanctuary of sorts, of peace. And why not? We know there are areas of the world inhabited by darkness, despair. Why not some that are inhabited by benevolence, mercy, and tranquility? It's a lake of alchemy, a lake of peace, transmuting evil into good. Case notes for the bonus file, The Secrets of the African Burial Site. Ghosts that do the dishes for you, that's oddly wholesome. The black teenage woman that you could sense had immense hatred emanating from her? I wonder how she was victimized, because that would be what would create that kind of animosity, I would guess. I would venture a guess that it's not directed towards anyone alive now, but yet trying to contain that hatred from spilling over for centuries? It may be what is causing the desynchronicity in her appearance, the jerky or laggy movements. Oops. Dave wants in on the action. The blinding light is such a cool demonstration of the control spirits have over electronics. They can turn them off, make them flicker intermittently, or overload the circuit entirely, causing the light bulb to grow extremely bright and then pop. This proves to me that they are indeed pure energy, mostly on the EM spectrum, hence their ability to control electrons. And now time for the movie of the day, The Devil's Advocate. So let's get something clear right off the bat. The acting in this movie is beyond comparison. It's legendary. How Al Pacino didn't win an Oscar proves the whole thing is rigged even decades ago. I believe I heard, although I'm not certain it's true, Al Pacino was so disturbed by his own performance when watching the movie itself, combined with the editing and music, that he became religious after. But yes, can't blame him. Never was a better devil portrayed on screen. It's exactly what the devil is supposed to be. Peter Stormage's performance in Constantine at the end is really good too, but this one is so... it's as you think the devil would really be. Not this being of pure sadistic evil necessarily with horns and a pitchfork and like skin that's flaking away or anything like that. No, his preferred method of torture is to convince people to harm and ruin their own lives through temptation, through their own will. And then Keanu was perfectly casted too. He's got that cocky charisma and confidence that is entirely earned because he's just so freaking good and he knows it. I think this is a movie that after watching it will make you a bit more careful in life, in the choices you make, how they can affect other people and indeed how those consequences ripple back to your own life, like waves in a lake. Every choice we make pushes outward, combined with time, affecting untold people. If there's a moral to the movie, think before you act, and really think how is it going to affect me and everyone around me. But it's a great movie just in of itself, without some grand moral meaning, just enjoy it. It is creepy, unsettling. The entire movie has that vibe that keeps you on edge, but in a good way. Case notes of file 1181. Surviving an explosive incident against all logic. To be honest, if anyone attributes this astounding event as mere coincidence, it made me feel diminished. This is too incredible to chalk up to rolls of the dice because your mother knew something truly horrific was going to happen if she didn't wait. You'd both have come home, spent a minute inside, and then boom. And it wasn't even just your mom. Everyone in that building that lived there either was in an area that they wouldn't get severely hurt or knew not to come home. There must be some guardian angel involved here, or at least some access to the future knowledge. Because that's what it was, future knowledge. People knew what was going to happen. Floating like a sea salted air. Some people can smell it, discern it. Others don't, but maybe they follow a tether from other people that do. You can't see it, you just feel it, sense it. Your mother took it to heart and saved both of you. But it's sad in a way because people won't understand just how incredible this story was. It's not just an accident. Or luck. Case notes file 1182. The Starcraft expansion that didn't exist. A split in the space-time continuum in that local area, and a focus on the time element of space. Simply, you saw that CompUSA shop and maybe just a little segment of it, as it would be in a few months, maybe a year into the future when the game was actually released. People experience this frequently, watching TV shows, movies, seeing other kinds of products not even released yet. It's a trip for sure. Also, Starcraft is such a good game, but I hate the Zerg. I'm all Protoss, baby. Case notes of file 1183. We died, but our hearts restarted in unison. I think we have a collective history of quantum immortality, jolting again and again, tethered, connected in this multiversal freeway between you, your mother, and your whole family. It's kind of wild to hear about, but I can't even begin to fathom what the experience would be like in each moment. You both must feel like superhuman sometimes, and I can't blame you. Or like Neo in the Matrix. You're the final destination nullifiers. And now time for the quote of the day. If we're not meant to have midnight snacks, why is there a light in the fridge? Unknown. Hey, this is the truest quote that's ever quoted. There's a light in that damn fridge because they know people are going to snack at night and it's intended. It's an intended feature. So don't feel bad when you go at midnight and snack. But, maybe get a fruit instead of ice cream. I may have some cashew-based caramel sea salt ice cream in the freezer right now. And it's kind of calling to me, so it's a problem. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.